betrayed at the altar, how I destroyed my ex's family, and took his empire. Picture this. I was all set to marry Damian Hargrove, the charming heir to a billion-dollar empire. Everything seemed perfect, until she walked into the church, pregnant and claiming to be his true love. The crowd gasped. Damian froze. But I didn't flinch. Instead, I smiled, handed her my bouquet, and walked away. Because this wasn't just a wedding disaster, it was the beginning of my master plan. In this video, I'll take you through the crazy twists, shocking betrayals, and how I turned my revenge into the ultimate power move. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happened next. Before we continue, please like and subscribe. Act 1, The Wedding Disaster. I, Lena Kingsley, stood at the altar with a smile so tight on my face I was pretty sure I'd need Botox just to loosen it later. The crowd was all dressed up, with their eyes glimmering with excitement, and me? Well, I was about to do something I'd spent years planning. And not just planning, I'd been pretending for so long, I'd almost convinced myself it was real. The dutiful fiancé, the picture, perfect couple, the fairy tale ending that everyone else had written for us. But today, that fantasy was about to be rewritten by me. As the priest droned on, asking if anyone had just cause to object to this marriage, I already knew what was coming. I'd been waiting for it, plotting it like a chess match. And just as I suspected, the doors to the Grand Cathedral flew open with a dramatic bang. Enter Mia Lovell, stage left. And naturally, she was pregnant. I mean, what's a wedding scandal without a pregnancy, right? She waddled down the aisle, her hand resting possessively on her belly as if it were a prize she'd won at a carnival. She looked like she was in slow motion, serene, yet clearly fueled by some kind of dramatic flair that only a woman in her position could pull off. The guests gasped as if they were watching the last season of Game of Thrones unfold live. Cameras flashed, and I could practically hear the headlines already being written. Damian Hargrove's true love revealed. Pregnant lover crashes wedding. The drama was so thick in the air you could slice it with a knife. But I wasn't worried. I wasn't even surprised. Mia, clearly soaking in every second of her grand entrance, declared loudly, "I'm Damian's true love." She pointed to her belly with a flourish. "He's mine, and I'm carrying his child." I mean, really? A child? I'd been by his side for years, and this woman waltzed in and suddenly she was the true love. Well, honey, she wasn't the only one who could play that game. Damian froze, his jaw nearly hitting the ground as the color drained from his face faster than a politician at a scandalous press conference. Whoa, I knew this moment was coming, but seeing his face? Priceless? The cameras were zooming in, and I had a front row seat to watch his self-made disaster unfold. And me? I stayed calm, cool, collected. Without missing a beat, I turned, and took my bouquet and veil off with all the grace of a seasoned actress in a soap opera. Mia, of course, was gaping at me, her big moment interrupted, but I wasn't going to let her have all the fun. I handed her the bouquet. "Really?" I said, voice loud enough for the whole room to hear. "Then you marry him." I didn't flinch as I said it. If anything, I felt a little too proud of myself. There she was, taking my place, and all I had to do was throw a little kindness her way. The room went dead silent. I swear, you could hear a pin drop. The kind of silence that only happens when people know they've just witnessed the beginning of a beautiful disaster. Turning slowly, I faced the crowd, those high society guests, who had no idea they were about to witness the most spectacular wedding disaster in corporate history. This was my show now. I cleared my throat, relishing the moment. "I'm withdrawing from the engagement," I said, voice steady, with just a hint of drama. Effective immediately. And just like that, pandemonium erupted. People gasped. Some began whispering frantically. Others scrambled to pull out their phones to capture this once-in-a-lifetime moment. Flashbulbs popped off like firecrackers at New Year's. I couldn't help but chuckle to myself, feeling as though I'd just pulled off the greatest performance of my life. The best part? No one knew what was coming next. Not even Damian, whose face was now a study in shock and panic. As the chaos took full bloom, I took a moment to savor the feeling of control. Because let's be honest, I'd spent years being the background player in this little soap opera of a life. But today I was the star. This wasn't a wedding day disaster. Oh no, this was my game. And I'd just made my first move. Act 2, a game of chess. Let's rewind a bit, to when everything seemed so simple. When I was just a little girl, and the world was still painted in black and white. I didn't understand what a house fire was, not until it took my mother's life. The flames consumed everything. Her, our house, our life. But what remained, the one thing I clung to, was the promise the Hargroves made. Damian's family. A promise to take care of me. It seemed like a fair trade at the time, right? A life for a life. The Hargroves owed me. It was all I had left. But life isn't as kind as promises, is it? Fast forward, and here I was, the orphaned daughter of a bankrupt business tycoon, tucked away in the corner of Hargrove Enterprises' grand empire. They had their own problems by then, their own messes to clean up. And I was just the afterthought, the obligation. They were no longer the benefactors. They were the reluctant guardians who tolerated my existence, because my mother had once saved their son from the flames. Damian, my ever-dashing fiancé, had become a stranger to me in every way that mattered. While I spent my days being the perfect, dutiful fiancé, running charity events, managing business meetings, making polite conversation, Damian was busy parading his string of mistresses around town. At first, I tried to pretend I didn't notice. Why should I? The man I had once thought I loved had long since fallen off the pedestal I'd put him on, replaced by a version of him that was as real as the Hollywood celebrities plastered on gossip magazines. Did it bother me? A little. But that was nothing compared to the plot I was cooking up. Damian? He was a pawn in my game. And a very important one at that. Then there was Mia. Mia? My charity case. The poor, struggling student I'd sponsored for years, convinced that I was doing something noble by helping her out. She was the kind of girl who'd always get the sympathy vote, smart, but too naive to understand the ropes of the real world. I never thought for a second that she'd end up being the one to snatch away the life I'd carefully constructed. Pregnant, with his child. I'll admit, it stung. Sure, it was a slap in the face, one that sent me spiraling for about 10 seconds tops. But I'd seen it all before. She wasn't the first, and she certainly wouldn't be the last. The women who followed in my shadow were a dime a dozen. Mia just happened to be the one who waltzed in with her perfect belly and dramatic timing. Still, the last straw came when I overheard them laughing. The two of them, Damian and Mia, mocking me in their oh-so-private little world. She's just the promise, they chuckled, the inconvenience we have to deal with. She's always been a placeholder. That's when something inside me snapped. I could have cried. I could have screamed. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled. The kind of smile that makes people think you've lost your mind. But in reality, you've just found a new purpose. If I couldn't have happiness, then neither could they. So I did what any rational person would do. I played the game. The long, slow game. And I played it so well that no one knew they were even in it until it was too late. I became the perfect fiancé, meek, patient, helpful, invisible. I took care of Damian's mother, Eleanor, who, let's be honest, would rather have burned me alive than have me in her house. She tolerated me because she had to, not because she liked me. But Eleanor didn't realize that, while she was busy pretending I didn't exist, I was taking over the reins of Hargrove Enterprises. Little by little, I was running the business, making the right connections, setting the stage, all while putting on my most perfect victim face. It was like living in a soap opera, except I wasn't just a character. I was the mastermind. And while the world saw me as the neglected, overlooked fiancé who had nothing to gain, I was secretly digging their graves, one well-calculated move at a time. I planted rumors. I caused distractions. I waited for cracks to form in their perfect little lives. Every smile I flashed, every word I spoke, was part of my plan. The perfect plan. When the time came, and it would come, I would be the one standing tall, not them. They had no idea who they were messing with. Damian and Mia might have thought they had it all figured out, but I knew one thing for sure. It was only a matter of time before they realized they were pawns in a game they never even saw coming. And trust me, I had no intention of losing. Act 3, The Fall of Damian Hargrove. The beauty of chaos. When the wedding scandal hit, it was like watching a slow-motion car crash in all its fiery glory. News outlets exploded with coverage. Every headline seemed to scream a new chapter of betrayal and drama. They loved it, of course. The media lives for this kind of thing. It's like Christmas for them. The betrayal, the mess, the unholy circus Damian and I had orchestrated. And just like that, Hargrove Enterprises, his empire, his pride and joy, started to crumble faster than you can say I told you so. The stock prices? Whoa, they plummeted. Investors? They bailed. And anyone who had still been in Damian's corner? They were gone, scattering into the wind like rats abandoning a sinking ship. The public ate it up and, whoa, how sweet it was to watch from my front row seat. But here's the thing. As delicious as it all was, it wasn't enough. Not yet. Whoa, no. I had more tricks up my sleeve. I wasn't about to let the Hargroves go down without the proper fanfare. This was just the opening act. So, I played my final card. With the grace of a chess master, I tipped off the authorities. Anonymously, of course, just enough to get the wheels turning. I whispered sweet nothings to the right ears about Damian's financial fraud and his, how shall I put it, questionable tax practices, all the crooked dealings he had been hiding for years. He'd built his empire with my help, sure. But it wasn't just my help, there were some rather unsavory methods in play, and I was about to make sure they didn't stay hidden for much longer. The authorities came knocking, and when they did, it wasn't just Damian's financial empire that came crashing down. No. His entire world unraveled before his very eyes. And then came the cherry on top. You remember Mia, don't you? The sweet, innocent charity case who had managed to worm her way into Damian's arms, pregnant with his child. The one who thought she had the golden ticket to a lavish life? Well, let's just say I gave that golden ticket a little nudge. I didn't do much. Just a subtle push. A slight nudge in the right direction. A tiny adjustment to her medication. Nothing that would be immediately obvious, but enough to make her pregnancy. Well, let's say it didn't quite work out the way she had planned. I wasn't heartless, mind you. I didn't want her to be permanently harmed. But she needed to lose that leverage. That baby was her ticket to the Hargrove fortune. And I couldn't let her keep it. I might have been a little strategic in helping nature take its course. Call it fate, or maybe just a touch of genius. Either way it worked. Damian, poor, delusional Damian, still thought he had a shot. He had no idea. He thought he could fix things, that he could patch up the hole he had dug for himself. But the poor man didn't know the truth. He was already drowning. The more he tried to save himself, the deeper he sank. And he had no clue that I was the one holding all the cards. I could have told him. I could have laughed in his face and revealed that I was the one behind his downfall. But I didn't. Why? Because watching him struggle was far more entertaining. Watching him chase after a chance at redemption while the walls closed in around him. Priceless? But here's the thing. While Damian flailed, thinking there was some miracle just out of reach, I was quietly building my empire, moving the pieces on my own board, and waiting for the final play. Because when the Hargroves fell, I was going to be the one standing at the top. And trust me, I had no intention of letting anyone, especially not Damian or Mia, get in my way. Act 4, the final twist. Then came the final twist, the one I'd been waiting for. Damian, desperate, came crawling back to me, thinking that after everything he'd lost, I was his only chance at redemption. He broke up with Mia, leaving her broken and bitter. But Mia? Oh, Mia had a plan of her own? She lured him to a secluded mountain retreat for what she promised would be one last conversation. It was supposed to be a reconciliation. But when Damian arrived, he found that Mia's desperation was a lot more dangerous than he had ever imagined. They argued, but it ended with Mia grabbing the steering wheel of the car and sending them both over a cliff. The crash was immediate and lethal. And that wasn't even the worst part. Eleanor Hargrove, devastated by the news, suffered a heart attack upon hearing of the deaths. The entire Hargrove family was gone. Just like that. And as the dust settled and the media scrambled for a tragic angle, there I stood, smiling to myself. You see, the Hargroves had built their empire, but I had built my own. With the family gone, who was left to inherit the business? Me. The media painted me as the tragic heroine who lost everything, her fiancé, her future, her family. But behind closed doors, I was popping the cork on a bottle of champagne and savoring my victory. Checkmate, I said, raising my glass to the sky. Because in the end, the game was mine to win. Which moment of revenge in the story gave you the most satisfaction? Was it Lena's wedding day stunt or her brilliant moves behind the scenes? Let me know your favorite twist in the comments below.